So I am Dr. Joy. I am a pharmacist and I work at the county hospital in Chicago. I'm not sure if all of you all are from Chicago, but the county hospital in Chicago. Been a pharmacist for about 8 years, and I have experience in outpatient, inpatient, ambulatory, and retail settings like CVS, Walgreens, that kind of place. In addition to me being a pharmacist, I'm also a health coach and aromatherapist, and I very recently got involved with the International Society of Cannabis Pharmacists. So it's very interesting and very uplifting that pharmacy is beginning to embrace cannabis. And I really, really appreciate that because I was one of those people that was apprehensive. I said, I don't know if I can do this because I'm a pharmacist, because it'll impact my license. But as I began to do more research, as I began to learn more about the cannabis plant and its true health benefits, I learned that it wouldn't impact my license at all. And it, in fact, gave me more information to be able to share with my people. So I'm also a Ruby dispensary owner at Wakana, and I am just excited to be able to talk to you all this evening. So when we're talking about why people seek CBD, there are a lot of reasons because CBD has a lot of health benefit. But when we talk about some of the main reasons, they're pain, anxiety, and depression. So when we're talking about pain and excuse me, anxiety and depression, a lot of us healthcare professionals want to see the literature. And I'm just going to minimize my screen so you're able to see all of the things on the slide. But a lot of healthcare professionals want to see the literature. So in this cross-sectional study of cannabidiol users, we understood that chronic pain was the #1 cause of disability and disease burden globally across the world. We understand that anxiety affects more than 18.1% of the population every year that's 18 years or older. And about 16.2 million adults in the United States alone have had at least one major depressive episode in a given year. So we see that these issues are really plaguing our communities, plaguing our nation, plaguing our world. And so when we talk about the prevalence of depression symptoms before COVID-19 and during COVID-19, we know COVID has run wild in our communities. It's caused death for some people, loss of jobs. It's caused just a lot of heartache, a lot of stress, right? And I thought that this quote from the Journal of the American Medical Association was important. The prevalence of depression symptoms in the US is more than 3-fold higher during COVID compared with beforehand. And individuals with lower social resources, lower economic resources, and greater exposure to stressors like job loss, for instance, like homeschooling their kids while they're conducting their work at their jobs, reported a greater burden of depression symptoms. So for me, that really hits home because I work with people in a lower economic status, that have lower social resources, lower health literacy. So it's really impacting the patients that I work with on a daily basis. So you may wonder, and let me go back here, with all of the depression symptoms, we now know that there are a lot of different natural methods of healing. There's a lot of different natural methods to address those depression symptoms, to address the anxiety, to address the pain. But with a lot of our patients that are on multiple medications, you may say, okay, CBD sounds nice, but how can I use it to affect change in my patients when they're already on so many medications? So your question may be, are there drug-drug interactions between CBD and prescription medications? Now, the answer is there can be, but there are ways to avoid those drug interactions so that patients can experience CBD and all of its health benefits and still adhere to their traditional medication regimens. So in order to understand those interactions, we got to go back to the CYP450 enzymes. Now, these are 6 of the most popular enzymes that probably metabolize about 90 of the prescription medications that our patients are taking. These are the most popular. And when you think about how these break down drugs, they also affect and break down CBD. So in this next slide, we'll talk about it. CBD is a substrate of 2C19 and 3A4. Those two are assigned to break CBD down, as we know. But we also know that CBD can inhibit 2C9, 2D6, and 3A4. And when CBD inhibits those, it prevents the medications that our patients are taking from breaking down. So the way that we're able to avoid that is the same way that we avoid medication interactions, the same way that we avoid making sure that there's no adverse events between medications that are being taken. And what happens is that you space it out 2 to 4 hours between the time that the CBD is taken and the time that the medication is taken. So these are medications that at first glance physicians may be like, well, you know, I prescribe these for my patients all the time. I have a lot of patients that fall into these categories that have hyperlipidemia, hypertension, heart complications, asthma, allergies, diabetes, the whole gamut, right? And they may say, okay, well, my patient is taking all of these, so they can't take CBD. It's impossible. Again, you can space your medications out for the patient to make sure that when they're taking those medications, they're not interacting, making sure that they're not going down those CYP450 pathways at the same time. Therefore, you can avoid that interaction. And it's the same way that you avoid interaction with prescription medications. When I run my drug interaction checks at work, I noticed that a lot of CBD products don't interact with the medications. It's the medications that interact with each other. But again, to avoid that, we space them out. So we're talking about CBD as an alternative. We'll speak about essential oils as an alternative in terms of how we can really affect change in that natural healing space. But you may wonder, who's using alternative medicine? As a physician, as a clinician, why should I care? And so this graphic next is going to talk about the treatment trends in terms of how people are using alternative medicine to really affect change in their bodies. So if you focus on this blue color down here, I don't want to say dark blue because they're both kind of dark blue. But if you focus on that down there, you'll see that the botanical use, botanicals are plant-based regimens or plant-based medicinal components that have a medicinal quality to them. If you move over and you see from 2014 to 2025, that use is increasing, along with acupuncture, along with mind and body practices, yoga practices. They even talk about magnetic intervention. That is increasing among people because they're starting to understand the power of plant-based healing. They're starting to understand the power of alternative medicine and how it can work in our bodies. So when we're talking about alternative medicine, it's important to talk about essential oils. We talked about CBD. We briefly touched on that. If you have more questions or want to know specifically how some of the CBD products work, you can come to our 8 o'clock call and we'll make sure that we give you all of that information. But essential oils are highly concentrated aromatic extracts that are either distilled or expressed from a variety of plant material, including flowers, the grasses, the leaves, the roots, the seeds, etc. And they can be used to relieve pain, reduce stress, improve mood, just a wide variety of health benefits that are offered by our prescription medications, but can also be effective in symptomatic relief for the different ailments that our patients are experiencing. So you may wonder why I have this weird picture on the slide, and it ties into essential oils in this way. So back during the bubonic plague, there were people that were dying left and right because anytime you came in contact with the plague, it was just killing people left and right. So the doctors used to wear this garb in order to protect themselves while they were treating those patients. And when they were protecting themselves, they used a blend of essential oils. In some places it's known as thieves oil, with Wakana it's known as essential defense. But they use this blend of essential oils with clove, rosemary, lemon, cinnamon, and eucalyptus. That blend really kept viruses at bay and made sure that they didn't get sick. And the reason that those doctors were able to acquire this blend is from a group of thieves, which is why it's called thieves oil in some companies, in some places. So the thieves were going and robbing the graves of all of the people that were getting sick with the plague, right? And what they said was, when they were caught, the judge said, okay, I caught you, I was gonna punish you, but if you can tell me how you're getting to rob all these graves and not contract this plague, then I'll let you go. And so when what they found was, the people said, hey, we were spice merchants. We knew how to blend different oils. We knew what the medicinal properties were. And we just doused ourselves in those oils when we were going to rob the grave. So whether it was on our ears or our face or our temples or our feet or our hands, we just put it all over us and we just didn't contract the plague. What is interesting about that is that there are essential oils that viruses literally cannot live in the presence of. So are we saying that essential oils will cure every virus that's out there? No. But what we are saying is that essential oils have the power, and they're very powerful substances, even in small amounts, to really fight off and really help build that protection for you. So when we're talking about how essential oils work in the brain, when we're inhaling, we're just even talking about when we inhale. When we inhale essential oils through the nose, it goes through the olfactory neurons and really reaches the limbic system of the brain. The limbic system contains the amygdala, which can determine how fearful you are of certain things. It contains the hippocampus and other areas that are really controlling memory. So that's why when you smell a particular scent, or you smell a meal or a cologne that may remind you of a family member or a loved one, the brain is working together with those senses, and it can really control that mood. It can really control that memory. So the essential oils travel through the olfactory neurons and really make that connection with the limbic system of the brain to control all of those things in our bodies. And it can control whether you're energized, whether you're sedated, whether you're happy, all of these different types of things. And that's only what happens when we smell the essential oil. When we smell the essential oil, all of those things take place in the brain. But when you use it topically with a carrier oil, you may be able to topically relieve some pain. If you're using it in a diffuser, those molecules are getting out into the air and making sure that they really fight any airborne microbes, that they clear the air. For instance, eucalyptus or peppermint, if you have that in your diffuser and you inhale the vapors, it can really help to open up that lung. So just really, really awesome stuff in terms of how the essential oils can affect change in our bodies from a health perspective. Even the Asian Pacific Journal of Tropical Biomedicine talked about how essential oils can be used in the body. And their quote says this: "Once the oils are in the system, they remodulate themselves and work at the site of malfunction or the affected area." So translation, they know where to go. They know what to do. They know what part of the body to affect change in so that it can help the symptoms that they're experiencing. And this type of therapy utilizes various permutations and combinations to get relief from numerous ailments. We're talking about digestion, indigestion, headache, insomnia, skin ailments, swollen joints. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But what's important to understand, whether you're talking about CBD or essential oils, is that essential oils are found to be more beneficial when you're considering other aspects of life, when you're making sure that the quality of life is good, when you're making sure that you're concerned about diet. You don't want to say that we're going to try these natural remedies and these natural treatments, and your diet is fried food and sugar every day, or your diet is something that won't even allow those essential oils or that CBD to absorb in your body. So you want to make sure that as you're considering natural alternatives, that you're also considering your overall health. Now, these two diagrams are really interesting because they talk about, on the left side, they talk about the chemical constituents of essential oils and how they can affect the body. And then the right side talks about different essential oils that fall into those categories. So if we take the aldehydes, for instance, that's a sedative property, anti-inflammatory, antiviral. And the oils that really correspond with that are lemongrass, eucalyptus, and eucalyptus has a ton of different components, but eucalyptus, one of the eucalyptuses, is under the aldehyde family, excuse me, can be a sedative. You might be talking about citronella. So you can see that all of these kind of correspond to how they're used and what their uses are in the body. And if anybody wants a copy of this chart, I can definitely share it with you. But it's just really amazing how our plant-based options have some of the same actions as some of our medications. Not to say that you should just cut off your medications completely or cut off the patient's medications completely and switch completely over to plant-based healing. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that there can be some real symptomatic relief, especially in matters with when we're relating to anxiety, when we're relating to depression. There's a lot of that going around. And if we can begin to suggest some methods to cope or methods to address symptoms that aren't always prescription medications that have harmful side effects, I think that it's worth taking a look at as healthcare professionals. So a little bit about essential oil safety considerations, and some of these kind of transition over to CBD as well. Do not apply to open wounds. Keep away from the eyes and wash hands after use. Patch test a small area or dilute. So if you've never used CBD topically, if you've never used essential oils topically, you want to patch test a small area that's inconspicuous, or you can dilute it with a carrier oil. When I say carrier oil, I mean coconut, almond oil, olive oil, excuse me, whatever can dilute the potency of the essential oil, and then put it on that area to see how it affects the skin. As always, when your patients are pregnant, nursing, if they have serious medical conditions or they're on medications, it's very important that you work with either aromatherapist like myself, or just understand that you don't have to be afraid of essential oils. You don't have to be afraid of CBD and cannabinoids. You can just space it out about 2 to 4 hours from the time that the patient is taking the traditional medication to the time that they're introducing, their CBD. More is not better. We always talk about how you start low, you go slow, and increase up to your sweet spot. That goes for CBD, that goes for essential oils, and it just makes sure that you understand which dose is proper for your patient, not necessarily which dose works for everybody, because everybody's body is different. We know that from prescribing medications to people. Everybody has different dosages specifically for them, which is why it's not wise to share medication. And lastly, if you're diffusing for up to 30 minutes at a time so that you don't overwhelm the senses. So, peppermint essential oil has been known to be diffused in patients' rooms who may be dealing with nausea and vomiting. Lavender essential oil for calming. So, you want to just diffuse 30 minutes at a time, or if the patient is able to go in and out of the room, maybe have them retire from the room for a minute for about 30 minutes and then come back, just so that those senses are not overwhelmed. I enjoyed sharing the essential oil and the natural remedy kind of side of how we can begin to affect change in our patients. And what I want to do is stop sharing my screen and introduce an amazing, amazing woman, Dr. Erica Montgomery. She is also one of our Wakanapreneurs, and she has been a clinical psychologist for over 23 years. She's an amazing, amazing woman and has such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to depression, when it comes to just making sure that people are in their right mind, for lack of a better term. So I just want to turn that over to Dr. Montgomery, because that is truly, truly her field, and allow her to give you some information about how CBD can affect change in those areas. So Dr. Montgomery, all for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joy. I appreciate always teaming up with you to provide information to our guests. So I just want to say welcome, everyone. I don't know if you all know, but today is Mardi Gras Day. So it's the day before, it's Fat Tuesday, right? The day before we start Lent. So I have on my little Mardi Gras because my roots run deep in New Orleans. So I'm just celebrating from afar since we are here in Chicago, snowed in. But I want to share just a little bit about mental health with you all, if I can. Let's see, hold on. Okay. And so, like Dr. Joy mentioned, I am a psychologist. I have been practicing for over 23 years in mental health. I also am a medical consultant with the Social Security Administration for Disability. I also host a weekly talk show called Master Your Mind with Dr. Erica. And as you see, I'm also a Wakana dispensary owner. And so the reason why I got into the CBD space is because after practicing mental health for so long, I really wanted to find and provide my patients with like a supplement. Because even though we're working on anxiety or depression or some of life's issues and traumas, I felt like they really, could benefit from an alternative, natural, plant-based alternative to the medications they were using. Because oftentimes I would see people with anxiety on anxiety meds or on depression meds or taking sleep meds or chronic pain meds, and they often had side effects and would often complain about not really getting the benefit, the full benefit and partial benefit from the medicines. And so as a professional, I was always thinking about how I thought cannabis would provide them with some relief in that area. And so when they passed the Farm Bill in 2019, it really was a blessing, because when CBD hit the forefront, and it was considered a nutritional supplement, and it wasn't marijuana, so I didn't have to worry about getting high and, working and not being able to pass those drug screens. But it was an alternative that provided the medicinal part of the plant, but without the high. And they could, go to work, they can be high functioning professionals that they are and not worry about random drug testing. So when I learned about Wakana and the 4 amazing women that are co-owners of this, of this brand Wakana, it just really fit perfectly for me. And so I started educating my patients on mental health. And I started educating my patients on CBD and how they could get relief from CBD for the anxiety, the insomnia, the stress, the depression, the loss of focus, the chronic pain. And so I often try to talk with my patients about demystifying mental health, because in our community, in the Black and Brown communities, there's such a stigma on mental health, and also a stigma related to marijuana and cannabis. And so I've just tried to make mental health more generally accepted. And so I started using the phrase, mental health is human health. And when I say mental health is human health, particularly since we're all going through this chronic stress of this pandemic and quarantine, we are all experiencing, a change in how our lives were before the pandemic. We're all experiencing an adjustment, whether it's a work adjustment, a life adjustment, parenting adjustment, financial adjustment, health adjustment. So there's all of these changes that are going on in our lives. And it's the changes that begin to surface symptoms of anxiety, stress, difficulty sleeping, depression. And so I just like to say that, every human being is dealing to some extent with symptoms of anxiety and depression and trauma and change. And it really is the chronicity of your symptoms and your ability to function that determines what type of care you need. And so when I educate my patients on CBD, I often try to explain to them that this is just to help you just calm yourself, to be able to manage and take the edge off of the stress or the anxiety, or be able to get some restorative sleep so that you can really begin to tackle the mental health component or whatever you're dealing with on a mental health level. So I see CBD as kind of like that first, layer of treatment that gives them an edge, that just kind of takes that edge off. And so that's kind of what I tell them. I'm like, you could really benefit from CBD because it will help calm you. It will help reduce the anxiety, help increase the focus, help you sleep. And so you can really begin to tackle some of the real issues that are going on. And so Dr. Joy presented some really great facts, with mental health and anxiety and depression. So I have a couple of quick other facts. 1 in 5 Americans struggle with mental conditions each year. So again, mental health is human health. So we're all in this together. 8 million Americans who have serious mental illness don't receive adequate treatment. So we have so many people who need the treatment and don't have access to it or don't get adequate care. We know in certain populations it's frowned upon, right? So again, I think CBD is a great starting point because it gives them a little relief that really allows you to function better, to begin to deal with some of the real issues. About 20% of the population suffers from some form of anxiety. So again, we know it's even higher because Dr. Joy read the statistic about those suffering from conditions before the pandemic and those that are dealing with it now. And increasingly, Pharmacists, physicians, psychiatrists, psychologists, nurse practitioners are really beginning to learn about the benefits of CBD and recommending it to their patients because they see the value. And so I often just talk about mental health and who is it for. And again, we're all dealing with our own different challenges and changes on a daily basis. But again, to eradicate the stigma, to make mental health human health, and to begin to educate people on the benefits of CBD and offering relief for some of these mental health symptoms, I just try to let people know that if you're going through a life change, if you're going through a transition, you could benefit from mental health. If you need someone to talk to or someone to problem solve because you're dealing with a big important decision, you could benefit from talking to someone in a mental health area. If you are trying to work on personal growth and development and you're feeling stuck and you have some of those same repeated behaviors that just seem to get in the way of you making change, you could benefit from mental health. If you want to improve on your relationships, let's say, you just haven't been the best friend or the best partner or the best parenting, you just want to improve on those relationships and have a safe space to share your ideas. The space is non-judgmental, Again, mental health or a professional in the area of mental health could really be supportive for you. And so I just try to not normalize the mental health issues, but let people know that it's okay if you're going through something, because when you're human and you go through different stages in our lives, and particularly this quarantine, you're going to be dealing with some anxiety. You're going to deal with stress. You're going to deal with depression. So it's okay. You're not alone. So we know that stress is so prevalent right now. We have been under chronic stress. If you're a human being living in this country, living anywhere, because this is a global pandemic, you have been under chronic stress, whether you believe it or not. We've been doing this for almost a year, okay? And you can't have a healthy body unless you have a healthy mind. So when you're under stress, it impacts you. Approximately 90% of physical ailments are stress-induced. So again, we're talking about the chronic stress beginning to manifest as physical symptoms in your body, whether that be hypertension, heart attacks, ulcers, chronic pain, anxiety, depression, insomnia, lack of focus. So again, all of us are feeling the chronic stress, and it's so important that we're taking care of ourselves, because we know that prolonged stress suppresses your immune system, weakens your body's natural ability to heal itself. And so one of the most important things that I, tell my patients, anyone that will listen, really, my family, my friends, is that if you want to reduce stress, CBD is really that first, to me, the first layer of treatment, because it's not used to treat. And so I want to not say first layer of treatment, but what I mean is that it helps to relieve some of those symptoms in a more immediate way to calm you, okay? Because CBD is not considered a treatment, but it's a supplement that when you take it, it calms you. It allows you to really take a deep breath, and say, okay, where do I need to go from here? And so CBD receptors are found in the nervous system and throughout the body, including the immune system, and they send signals to our body to calm that stress response, to lower the inflammation, to reduce the pain. And so again, it's about really teaching the people that we work with that they need the benefit that CBD provides just to help them manage that stress. Some of the symptoms of depression are depressed mood, loss of interest, significant weight gain, insomnia, hypersomnia, diminished concentration, worthlessness, guilt, agitation, low energy, markedly diminished interest, sometimes even thoughts of death. And these symptoms present for at least 2 weeks. and are a significant change in functioning from how you used to function. So if you see these symptoms that are presenting on a consistent basis over, I would say over 2 to 4 weeks, and it's a change, then that's a red flag, okay? And CBD oil helps people suffering from depression. So research is really showing that CBD oil causes the receptors that release serotonin to fire more effectively. This increases the serotonin production and stabilizes its presence in the body. So again, it helps for us to have more healthy emotions. Some of the anxiety symptoms of anxiety are excessive worry, difficulty controlling worry, restlessness, feeling on edge, irritable, muscle tension, sleep difficulty, fatigue, reduced concentration. Again, these are symptoms that, what I say, mental health is human health. We're all experiencing, to a certain degree, these symptoms because we've been chronically stressed. But if you have these symptoms for at least 6 months, and there's multiple situations that present that increase them and exacerbate them, then it's something you might want to think about, right? And so researchers confirm that patients that gave their subjective report, they reported a reduction in anxiety after taking the CBD product by performing brain scans showing cerebral blood flow patterns consistent with anti-anxiety effect. And so when they looked at those brain scans, they saw that the CBD had an anti-anxiety-like effect based on the blood flow patterns. And this is what was reported by those subjects. CBD significantly reduces social anxiety by affecting the amygdala. So a lot of people who deal with the fear-based type anxiety, and the areas of the limbic system that affect memory and emotion. And so we know CBD helps to increase those levels of serotonin and enhance those feelings of well-being. And so if you're experiencing mild levels of depression, mild levels of anxiety, CBD is a great supplement to really help you manage those symptoms so you can really be able to tackle what you're dealing with. And so a lot of what I do, to be honest with you, is educate. Because so many of my patients, when I tell them about a cannabis or CBD, they automatically think I'm talking about marijuana because that's all people know, right? And so really our job as professionals are to educate, because once we educate them, they are more open and receptive to taking a look to say, okay, let me try the product. And so these are the 3 top products that I educate my patients on and that I recommend for their chronic pain, their anxiety, depressive symptoms, insomnia, loss of focus. And I just start by educating them on the difference between THC and CBD, because I want them to know that it's not going to get them high, that the legal limit for CBD is 0.3% THC. I want them to know that the receptor sites for CBD are all over throughout the body and not just centrally located in the brain where, they get that psychoactive property. I want them to know that the benefits of CBD, if you look at this round diagram, they have a lot more benefits. So the medicinal benefits of CBD far outweigh those of THC. So again, I'm providing that education for them so that they can understand that it is something that is going to benefit them. If they use it daily, it will not only help the mental symptoms or the anxiety and depression and focus, but it'll also provide physical relief from symptoms such as chronic pain and inflammation and just so many other symptoms that people have. And I also like people to understand that every human walking has an endocannabinoid system, because people always say, well, why not a psychotropic medicine? And so I explained to them that psychotropic medicine is going to really trigger those symptoms of anxiety or depression or, insomnia or focus. But when you're taking CBD and you have an endocannabinoid system, and you have receptor sites throughout your entire, almost all the organs in your body, then you're getting a full beneficial response from this organic natural plant. It's not just targeting that symptom, but you're getting the overall benefits emotionally and physically. And so again, these are my 3 top products: the Power Gummies and the Power Hempranium 500 milligram. And then for those with chronic pain, it's the pain cream. And so I also explained to them, let me see, I want to stop sharing. Let's see. I also explained to my patients that the good thing about our CBD at Wakana is if you have random drug tests, and so you know that you can't take even the 0.3% THC, which is a legal limit, because if you're taking it daily, there may be trace amounts that accumulate over time. Well, guess what? We've got the Pure line, and the Pure line is 0.0% THC. So I'm like, if you're taking random drug tests, if you know, take the Pure line. We've got the Pure Gummies, the broad spectrum, and these now have up to 900 milligrams of CBD. That's 60 milligrams per gummy. That's a significant amount, okay? And then this is the Pure tincture. So, I mean, that's pretty much my why. My why is we all need the daily benefits of CBD because we're all under chronic stress, and it alleviates some of those symptoms so that we can really begin to do the more internal work. And again, that's why I encourage people to reach out to a professional, because we can all benefit from support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Montgomery. It's just always so awesome to hear you talk because I learn so much each and every time. I do want to allow the opportunity for questions for any of our guests, but to your point about your why and why it's important to explore CBD as an option, especially as healthcare professionals. As a healthcare professional myself, I'm not exempt from anxiety. I'm not exempt from depressive symptoms. And I've transparently had some of those over this time and over this COVID experience. So my CBD has been very, very helpful, from the tinctures to the gummies to even some of the inhaled products. As a healthcare professional and as just a person in general, I wouldn't recommend those inhaled products to anybody that has any pre-existing lung conditions or ones that don't feel comfortable with smoking. I am not a smoker, but I will do 1 to 3 puffs, maybe once or twice a day, depending on what my anxiety and how that's feeling. So I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you coming to educate us. And like I said, I do want to offer the opportunity for any questions that anyone may have. I see we got some more guests on the line, so welcome if you're business partners, welcome if you're guests. And if you are guests, let us know who invited you.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I know that the vapes have gotten a bad rap, for people who vape on nicotine and, tobacco. But I have to say, for my patients that have panic attacks, I recommend the vape because it is an immediate delivery system straight to the lungs, straight to the bloodstream, and it's effective. And so when you have a panic attack, it leaves you almost paralyzed. And so you need an immediate relief. And so I explained to them that the cartridges that we have, have the oil in them, and all they're getting is the battery that just heats it. All the battery does, thank you, she got it. Thank you. All the battery does is heat that oil so that it becomes vaped, and then you're inhaling it. So you're not inhaling any of the toxins, the pesticides, the heavy metals. You're not inhaling any of that, which is different from the vaping that happens when you're doing tobacco, that nicotine, and whatever else comes in those ingredients. Whereas for us, it's a pure product. I always tell my patients, 100% USDA certified organic. You can't get better than that. Certificate of analysis that can attest to the purity of the product, third-party tested. Again, these are criteria and really things that make Wakana stand alone as a product. And so when some of my patients will come to say, oh yeah, I've been using CBD. And I'm like, well, you've been using CBD, but you haven't been using my CBD. So, you need to give it a shot. And I explained to them all of the rigorous procedures and processes that the CBD goes through. And they always find the effects of it and the benefits of it. And so.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. And the fact that we as healthcare professionals can offer another option that does not cause a lot of side effects with all of the prescription medications that our patients are taking. Lynette Wells asked the question, is it necessary or important to space time between taking CBD and prescribed medication? So yes, I run drug interactions at work all the time to see if CBD interacts with other prescription medications. But if you do not have that luxury or can't get in touch with your doctor at that time, it is safe to space at least 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours between the time that you take your prescription medication and the time that you take your CBD. Because what we explained earlier was that CBD travels down some of the same pathways as some of our prescription medications, and we don't want them interacting at the same time. So the same way that your doctor will space out some of your medications that you take in the morning and the evening for the purposes of not having them to interact, that's the same way that you can do your CBD. Always let your doctor know what you're doing. Always let your doctor know what holistic methods of healing that you're using. But just, educate them, invite them to these calls, allow them to ask questions so that they feel comfortable and that they know that CBD is a healthy alternative to deal with some of those symptoms. So yes, spacing it out is important, at least 2 to 4 hours.
And I like to tell, my patients, because a lot of the concern is, what about overdose? Mm-hmm. And I explain to them, I'm like, there's not one study found of a fatality from taking CBD. So again, but we can't say that about some of these other, prescription medicines. And so I try to help people understand that it's a plant. Mm-hmm. It is an oil that derives from the cannabis plant, the hemp species. And so it's like taking broccoli. Can you overdose on broccoli? These are our plants, and we know that plants have been in use for medicinal purposes for centuries, since the beginning, of our country. So again, I just try to help them understand that this is a more healthier option, something that's natural, that's holistic, that's grown organically than some of the other options that we have out there.
And if you do take too much CBD for your personal body makeup, you may experience headache. There may be some abdominal discomfort or some stomach discomfort, but you're not going to have those harmful side effects that are life-threatening. What all you would need to do is just make sure that you start low, go slow, and increase as needed. So that was something else that I did want to point out. And just like Dr. Montgomery said, it's like eating broccoli. You can't overdose on broccoli. This is a plant-based substance, a botanical that is really going to help enhance your health.
And you need it every day. That's another thing that sometimes my patients, when they're taking their medicines or psychotropic medicines, they'll skip a couple of days. And, they're complaining that they don't feel like it's helpful. And I said, well, anything that you do consistently, you get the consistent benefit. And so the CBD is the same. You have to take it every day because it will provide the benefit for today if you take it. But if you don't take it tomorrow, you may not get that same benefit. So again, it's something that it's a daily, and I tell my patients, I'm a daily user and strong advocate for the benefits because I know the benefit of it. Yeah. So.
And Dr. Montgomery, that leads into Zeb's question. If somebody's taking bipolar meds, what would be the best CBD product to take? And for someone with depression and anxiety, which products will be good? If you want to take this one, you can. But what I also will say is that Dr. Rita does a full overview of a lot of different, disease states and how CBD helps. So we have a depression and anxiety YouTube that she's already done, that she brings up the different products that we have, how they can be used, how they can be combined. We can also speak to them here. I just wanted you to know that that was an additional resource there that you can tap into. Whoever invited you can give you that information, or I can kind of look while Dr. Montgomery is answering, and then I can give you the link for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, for what I typically recommend is the 500 hempranium, because it is a strong enough, the 500 milligram, it's a strong enough concentration that you could start low and have an effect. So I typically will start 2 to 3 drops twice a day, okay? And that's that 500 milligram. Again, if they don't feel an effect, I think Dr. Garita recommends they take it for like a week or 5 days to see, because sometimes just starting a new, product or new supplement, you may not notice. Some people don't pay attention to their body. And so I always tell my patients, when you first take it, take only 2 to 3 drops and pay attention to your body. Pay attention to how your body feels. And then if you don't feel a difference, try it again, because you're going to take it twice a day. Try it again at night, see how you feel. If you don't feel a difference, up it by 1 drop, But really with the CBD, I think some people think more, is better. And to me, less is more, because it is such a strong concentration. So I always start my patients with the 500 milligram hempranium twice a day, 2 to 3 drops. The gummies, if it's more of an insomnia or hypersomnia, I may do the gummies, and I always say 30 to 45 minutes before you go to bed, because it does have a very kind of relaxing, and they say sleep, sex, and inflammation. So I hope that helps.
Absolutely. And I did post the link to Dr. Rita's depression and anxiety video, so you can really get a good overview of not only the disease state, but the products that she recommends both by themselves and in combination. Because one thing that Dr. Montgomery mentioned is that she didn't just mention the tincture by itself, or just mention the gummy by itself, or just mention the vape by itself. Combining these products and taking advantage of the fact that there are different durations of action, different amounts of time that it's going to work in your body, you can be layering the products, and as one is wearing off, the other one can be gearing up to work, so that you have that constant relief, that constant symptomatic relief in your body. So that's going to be very important as well. But Zeb, whoever invited you to the call, make sure that you get back with them, because they have a lot of resources that they can share with you, a lot of slides that we have, a lot of product information, just a lot of things that can really get you the information that you need, or if you're asking for another family member or friend, that can get that information for them as well.
Yeah. And the water soluble is good too, because some people don't like the taste of the tincture. So the water soluble, just dropping a couple of drops in your water sometimes is a better for some people who, don't like the taste. Yeah.
Yes. So if anybody has any questions or needs me to send any links or anything, please, please do me a favor. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and that way I don't lose any of your questions when you're sending it to me. I see that Jewel did send something, but just please send it to my email, and that way I can copy it for you. Or Jewel, if you have access to Dr. Rita's YouTube playlist that Dr. Roz posts, then you will be able to access it there, along with all the other videos that she does on the disease state topics.
Yeah, and Lynette Wells wanted that chart where you showed the essential oils and the effects of it. So she left her email in there.
Yeah, I sent that to her. I got that to her.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, Dr. Montgomery, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on this doctor's call. Everybody, continue to invite your healthcare professionals, continue to come on yourself and continue to learn. Don't hesitate to ask questions. No question is a bad question unless it's not asked. And we appreciate you all this evening. If you would like to come over to the 8 p.m. call, we'll be talking about the products, we'll be talking about the business, and how you can really make your mark in the cannabis industry if you have not already done so. So thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Montgomery. Thank you, guest.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Joy. Yeah.
Awesome.
And start with trying it. Start with taking it. If you haven't yet, you gotta, you gotta be an advocate for yourself. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Have a good night.
Good night.
Happy Mardi Gras.
Yeah, happy Mardi Gras. Get our beads. Have a good one, everyone.
You too.